to Bring Out Your Geek. We are talking Rise of the Governor with Kelly, as usual. And we have Will Damron back.
Hi.
Woo! There he is.
The crowd roars.
Yeah, we had so much fun doing Snowpiercer. So I'm hoping this will be better at our last shot than at Rise of the Governor.
Well, I think based on what we learned with Snowpiercer, you and I have it real easy tonight, Jeans. We sit back and Will just reads dramatically excerpts from the book, and we're good.
This is the first show that I do not have notes on because I started taking notes and it was going to be like endless. So it was going to end up being like Cliff Notes. So I was like, you know what? Not happening. But we are going to split the book into 4 sections. Kelly, what are those sections?
I'm ready. I'm ready for the sections this time. So the book itself, you know, the authors who clearly don't know what they're doing, but the authors have broken into 3 sections, which was the Hollow Men, Atlanta, and Chaos Theory. Okay. We, on the other hand, will be breaking it into Wiltshire Estates, Atlanta, the Farmhouse of Doom, and Woodbury.
Okay. Farmhouse of Doom. That's the best. It's the best farmhouse. Love it. So, essentially, I think one of the first things that we need to point out is that this is Rise of the Governor, but...
She's going to break on you, man. Here's what's going to happen right now.
But it's really about 2 brothers, Philip and Brian.
Yes.
And
well, you do need notes.
Well, you know, I'm trying not to throw out too much in the beginning. So why don't you go for it then, Kelly?
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go right ahead. But I think the names are pretty safe because they are on the first page.
So younger and older brother. The older brother is a little less, I don't know, stable and confident than the younger brother.
Seems to have met with more success. Ish.
Yes.
Kind of.
Yes. And that's Philip, the younger one.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Brian is the older brother. He's more sort of lanky and weaselly looking and a bit sickly in the beginning of the book. And even though he's older, he doesn't seem to have as good a handle on life as his younger brother, who was like a jock in high school and all that fun stuff. And it starts out that they are fighting zombies. They're fighting walkers.
In The Walking Dead?
That's a shocker, isn't it? Well, they're not fighting because Brian is in a closet.
That's true.
With Penny.
Yeah.
His job is to protect Penny as he sneezes all over her in this closet, I guess.
And attract the zombies with his coughs so that they can get killed.
Yeah.
The descriptions of him being sick were like so overt and really strong that like I wanted like hand sanitizer just to read the book. It was just, like I just mucus and coughing and phlegm and yeah, really just hacking up a lung and so he was hiding and sick to his stomach, not necessarily from being sick, but from all of the noises that Philip and his 2 friends were making, chopping up zombies.
Yep, and they, and he, you know, so I would agree, particularly the descriptions of his illness they'll stick with you for a while. They're pretty good. And
you can definitely tell they're fans of Stephen King with the amount of detail they go into, but they kind of went a little bit above and beyond.
The only thing that I will say about this book is that when I'm reading something, I really like descriptions of things such as texture or just I don't know, something a little more general. There are paragraphs, whole gigantic paragraphs in this book where something is like something else, and like this, and this is like that, and that is like this, and they don't allow you to come up with your own mental images And I really sort of enjoy that. I enjoy having my own sort of movie reel going in my head and being able to picture those things, and they really don't allow for that. You don't get to use your imagination as much as you normally would while you're reading. And I think it's because it's based on somebody who's used to doing a graphic novel, that it's very specific what they want you to picture at what point. And there's a lot of likes in the book. It's like this, it's like that, like. And that's the only thing I think that I really wanted to kind of pick a bone with this book. Otherwise, I like it, but it's doesn't leave you very much for your own imagination.
I definitely agree there, and actually, that's one thing I definitely noticed in this book, in addition to, the book I mistakenly read, Rise of the Governor, or I'm sorry, Fall of the Governor, which it's actually even worse in that book, in my opinion.
Okay.
But the entire time going through both of the books, I was just thinking, this was obviously like made from a comic book script. Like, that's the way it read. Was like, this was supposed to be like an alternate version of The Walking Dead, basically.
Yeah.
Well, and see, this is where you two are far, far different than I, because every completed paragraph's a victory.
He's like, I like being told what to think.
This is more words. I just made it through more words. And so it was really irritating because I had, Jeans had flagged this like thing, and like many things that Jeans flags that she doesn't like, I got to hear about it repeatedly, and so I was clear that this was a problem. And I wanted to like watch for it to see it, so that I could at least pretend to be angry. Oh, there it is. That's terrible. But I couldn't. So it didn't jump out at me a lot. But I hear what you're saying. But I will accept a phlegm proxy. If they want to give me, I don't want to figure out this whole snot scene at the beginning. He can give me an analogy, and I'm ready to move on.
Sorry, Kelly.
That's all right. I'm good.
Oh, man. So they clear out a house, essentially, is what it boils down to. They're in a house, they clear it out, and all the heavy lifting is essentially done by Philip and his two friends. And for the life of me, right now, I should have taken notes because I can't remember their names. Oh my god.
Bobby and Nick.
Yes. Okay. Woo! Which one is meet first?
Bobby is the fat one.
Okay.
Yeah. Nick makes it to almost. Well, anyway, Bobby goes first. So, Bobby's the bulkier one of the crew. A little tubbier. They were the old high school sort of chums, and we also learned that as we want to establish how unsuccessful Brian is, he is there was a failed music store venture that gets a lot of play in terms of that, and then a Jamaican wife.
I think so.
Yep.
Eventually kind of said, "Enough with you." I don't really do Jamaican, so I don't even want to try. But she left.
I usually can, but now I'm afraid to after listening to you.
Well, you'll do better. Mine was more like an Irish.
No, it wasn't.
Fine. All right, go right ahead there.
I'm
Be like a Jamaican. Go ahead.
I can't do it now. I can't do it like I'll mess it up dramatically. Even worse than you now.
Oh. Well, I'll let you continue at this point. So go right ahead.
Okay. So, yeah, but no, you're right. So, they went on and on about how he opened a music store in Athens, Georgia, I think, and saying that there were already a boatload of them, so he lost a lot of money and his business went down the toilet, so he ended up living with his parents. And Philip came and got him when this whole thing sort of blew up.
Yeah, and actually not too excited when he found him. And I can't leave you.
So I guess I'll take you with. But actually, I think in the long run, it ends up working out for Philip because he ends up having a babysitter for Penny. That's really, I think, Brian's main role through 90% of the book is just babysitting Penny.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Which is interesting given who he turns out to be.
Yeah.
It does explain a few things later on as well.
I will say, oh, sorry.
Yes.
I will say again, it's like, even though I won't spoil anything for the future, having read The Fall of the Governor and comparing it to what happens in this book, it was like seeing it through a completely different perspective, especially knowing who Brian is.
Right. Which we will explain at the end.
Yes.
Although I think everybody from the show probably knows it's Philip, right? I mean, Philip, but that's what they think. Anyway, all right. Well, I live on like the good ship spoiler. I just talk about stuff. So having to like restrain that, my brain is just not happy at all.
Well, we decided last time that it was just like, spoilers, whatever. So.
All right.
Go for it.
We should just do it. Okay.
There's order of the story we can honor too. In terms of if you'd like to start at the end, Genes, and work backwards, we can. But
we'll Tarantino it.
Yeah, whichever you like. It's a time slip.
All right. So Philip decides he wants to hang out there for a while because he likes being in a house with lots of food
and drink. Seems like a nice place. They kind of figure a way to kind of create some barricades. They, which I think is excellent too. Hooked up a nail gun as a zombie management device, which is kind of nice because it's not particularly loud. You just get kind of a and down they go. Which
I had to kind of wonder about because I know that they started putting those safety things on where it won't allow you to put a nail in flesh, essentially, but he does get to do that. So.
I'm not familiar with the flesh protecting safety thing.
Nor I.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. Some well, maybe it's just some of them that have like if it's
nail?
like a softer surface, it won't do it. I don't know. Maybe it's not all of them. Maybe it's just the one that we had at my parents' house to make sure we weren't going to kill each other.
Or did they tell you that? Oh, you can't hurt yourself. Put it up to your head if you want. No.
Now, James, they might have that kind of stuff up in the north, but they down in Georgia. They don't have them fancy schmancy nail gun.
Safeties are for wussies down the south.
There you go. There you go. That's my bad. Sorry. Safety features. Shh. So yeah, they start putting up some type of I don't know makeshift fence to try and keep the zombies out. Well, although it doesn't do that good of a job. They are making a bit of noise and sort of drawing attention to themselves.
But they got a swing set.
Yeah,
so
and
Penny, Brian can go swing Penny. It's a big job.
And they didn't do a complete sweep of the outside of the house apparently.
Yeah.
Right, want to talk about that?
That part, that really bugged me because, okay, they've set up the fence and everything.
Mm-hmm.
If the little kid zombie is in that doghouse, you can't tell me that it wouldn't have noticed anything until the fat guy brushes against the doghouse.
True. Yeah, they weren't exactly being quiet. I mean, they were talking to each other, and I mean, they were certainly making enough noise that you would hear it from inside the yard. Well, and if they're drawing them from outside the fence, then yeah. But a little wee zombie comes out and decides to take a chomp out of Bobby.
That's a great Jamaican accent. Nice
That's
job.
not a Jamaican accent.
That's awesome. Good job.
It is my disclaimer. It is not a Jamaican accent.
Okay.
It's barely an accent at all.
Whatever.
This show is chaos. All right.
But just to Will's point, because if I kind of remember the sequencing of events, the whole when Meat leans up against the doghouse, this is post Brian going out and swinging Penny, which is snack time, and this kid's and the fact that this is the first time that he makes an appearance, this is the kid that Brian saw in the family photo that they searched high and low for and couldn't find. It was a little surprising that he was able to stay so hidden there. But not anymore, because he comes out and takes a big old hunk out of Tubby.
Which is, I think, one of the descriptions of him in the book, actually. So we're not being rude necessarily.
White, yeah. Mr. Tubby.
Yeah, and so he ends up biting it. I think just for the sake of moving along to the next section. And
Does
so
he end up biting it, or does it end up biting him? Sorry.
Details.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So they load up a Suburban, I believe,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
with all their goodies,
Mm-hmm.
and they set out to Atlanta. So they plan to go to Atlanta.
Because at this point, the radios are still semi-functional. This is very early on in the apocalypse. This is, I think, probably like Shane and Laurie hooking up time, maybe, in that time frame.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems...
Sorry.
way to ruin the mood.
Well, that was in the first few weeks, so...
Yeah, so I think it's right in that same kind of time frame. If we're going to be looking at trying to use The Walking Dead as just like a reference point, I would say it was probably right around Shane and Laurie hooking up, because the radio stations are saying you need to get to Athens, and there's a lot of he's talking about messages on. They talk about messages on Facebook a little bit, and a lot of sort of apocalyptic biblical stuff going on in people's BlackBerry texts and stuff like that.
So Jeans and Will, I'm interested. Give me your best post-zombie apocalyptic tweet. So you're in the first 3 weeks. You're in the first 3 weeks of the apocalypse. What's the kind of tweet I'm going to be getting from Jeans about week 3?
Week 3?
Yeah.
I'm dead in week 3, so there's no tweeting for me.
No tweet. How about you, Will?
Oh, sweet embrace of death, please come quickly. I don't know.
I don't. Week 3. Probably down to only handgun ammo. Send help, please.
That's good.
I don't think I get that. I'm like Chris Hardwick. I would just be like out. I'd be one of the first to go. I'd be the one trying to gnaw through your door to get to you. There you go.
That's good to know.
I have firearms though, so
you can put me out of my misery. Excellent.
I'd probably still be tweeting great band names. I think I'm still going to be throwing them out there. Just
like the Grateful Dead.
Ooh. Dead
I suck at these.
Dead Kennedys. Okay, cool. Yeah, so they are heading out to Atlanta. So we are now leaving the oh, and forgot to mention, this is kind of key.
Yeah.
Subdivision they're in is a golfing subdivision, and it's Wiltshire Estates.
Aye, laddie.
From the comic, which was the home where Donna left us.
Right, and that is something. As they're pulling away in the Suburban, he does allow Nick. Is it Nick or is it? I think it's Nick that gets out and does it.
Brian puts the sign up.
Brian puts the sign up. Okay, so it's dead inside. So it sort of ties that little bit together with the comic, where Rick thought that he had found this, sort of great haven, and they all go inside and they get some rest, and then they come out in the morning to go sort of clear through things, and then they find that it's overrun. And Donna, our favorite character at that point in the book, just loved her judgmental stuff so much. She bites it. Yeah.
She would have been an awesome assistant for Andrea in the whole clothes manufacturing process later in the prison.
Home economic debacle.
They would have been big. Could have been huge. Yeah. So the whole.
Just needle me a little more on that.
All dead, do not enter.
Yes.
Featured in the comic, and again, not gifted with any short or long-term retention, but I believe, have both of you seen the most recent Walking Dead episode?
I'm only on season 3, so
yeah, you are behind on everything.
I know.
Doctor Who, Walking Dead, man.
I'm catching up on Doctor Who.
Yeah, plus Doctor Who time travel, so it doesn't matter where you're at.
That is actually sort of,
you're
you
always
can watch
up
that back to front, doesn't matter. Yeah, okay.
That's good. So this won't be too spoiler for Ken, but I believe Noah's place is Wilshire Estates.
Is it?
I believe. I believe that they had a little sign or something somewhere. I could be wrong on that.
Okay.
There may have been a sign. I'll have to
There
check
was a
my
sign, but I don't remember what it said.
StorySync, AMC StorySync threw up the drawing of Wilshire Estates and the gate and the name over it when they arrived there. So I assumed, oh, I must have missed a Wilshire Estate sign. But,
it was really small. It was like on a little tiny, like brick, almost like a seat, but it was like probably like a planter or something. It was really little, if I remember correctly. Watching, I watched it after the fact. I didn't get to watch it on Sunday, so I actually watched it the following day. But yeah, okay.
So they leave. They're in their Suburban. They load it up, and they're making their way to Atlanta because they think things are going to be better there.
Right.
And so we're moving into the Atlanta section.
Could they be more wrong?
And I'd say no.
Dun, dun, dun.
There's lots of zombies run over, lots of cars getting stuck, lots of rage.
Lots of rage.
Like
worse than Shane rage.
Yeah.
Georgia redneck rage.
Yeah, I think Philip has as far as like rage goes. I mean, I you know, Shane's pretty angry, a little rageful, but Philip just really cuts down to the bone in that, man. He wins that hands down, I think.
Yeah, and their existing vehicle with all their stuff in it gets stuck. They got problems. They eventually are kind of a little bit on the run.
Right.
And I'm trying to remember, and this is where I should have had notes on it here, because so the kind of decent sized car, they lose it. They kind of make their way into Atlanta, and they actually get to the really good ride before they hit the apartment. I think they do.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they upgrade in a big way. I really like the sounds of their second car. It sounded really nice.
So and they end up getting out and walking though.
Yeah.
And that's when they meet up with April. Is she the one that answers the door?
It was April, I think so.
Okay.
April
Yeah.
waved them in. She's saying, "Come on," because I think they got the new ride, and then Philip got mad again, so now the new ride's no good, and so they're on foot, but they're in a lot of trouble, big horde, and they get waved in by a young lady into an apartment complex.
Right. Whose father doesn't want to buzz them in.
No. Yeah, there's a little debate, too long of a debate about. And it's Tara, April, and Dad. I can't remember Dad's name. Old wheezy guy.
Yeah.
Oxygen boy.
Let me just say that out of that entire family, Tara, like it seems like they didn't even attempt to make her seem redeemable at all. They were just like, oh, she's fat, she's ugly, and she's a...
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll go with that. That's a pretty accurate description, actually.
And a smoker.
Like he had somebody in mind. Yeah, he had somebody in mind, like I don't know, like a lunch mom or something that just pissed him off.
Yeah.
That's her effigy right there in this book.
It probably was named Tara, and he's just like, named Tara. I think
old ex-girlfriend. I don't know, man, but he was angry at somebody because she is foul from soup to nuts, and like from her very first appearance all the way to her last, with like I don't know 1 or 2 second intervals of being even remotely human, and I think that's mostly just because she's not talking.
Yeah, it's just less. It was just like, well, she wasn't as ticked off, and oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
But I will, in her arc, she is consistently unpleasant throughout all of it.
True.
But when she's unpleasant at the tail end of when we get a chance to see her,
yeah.
So then at that point, the situation matches her natural disposition, I guess.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
when we get to that, I have something to say, but that'll wait.
Okay.
Yeah. So they do get taken in at this point in time, and it's Nick and Penny. Brian,
Philip,
and Philip. Yep. And it's a performing group. They used to I'm not.
Very bohemian.
Yep, I was gonna make a Tara joke, and I'm not.
They're smoking weed. They're smoking weed and singing songs.
Singing songs and kind of a clogging group. I don't know. They were a musical group of some sort, and they apparently quite beautiful when they do actually perform. Even Tara, who's got they also established another factor is she's got to have her smokes, and that's some of the big runs. Got to make sure we pick some of that stuff up for her, so it was interesting. But Dad's a little untrusting to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Brian and April, Philip and April seem to slowly develop
something. Not sure what exactly. Something.
Yeah. Philip's a little bitter on how things kind of went for him. Brian, of course, no Jamaican accent here. He's had a bad run. But Nick, I don't know. I don't know what Nick's doing. But,
Has Nick started reading the Bible yet? Is that started, or is that's soon?
He does. Yeah, I think he starts to amplify it as the next series of events occur. But that was kind of mentioned early he's pays some attention to that, and it's kind of at the ready.
Yeah.
But I think it does start to pick up.
Okay. And April and Penny bond a bit, and they do some gardening on the roof, and the boys go through and clear apartments and try and look for supplies. Most of what they find, though, is medication, so not necessarily terribly useful. And then we find out that Nick has been sort of scouting up and down the street, looking for safe spots so that they can get out and get supplies. And there's very specific places that you can go that are clear.
And he set up like a makeshift sky bridge, kind of.
Yeah, yeah. He ends up being able to go from one roof to the next, and then getting down and sort of going through. And he discovers, I think it's like one of those over the street hall, like glass hallways, getting from one building to another. Is that called Skybridge? I don't know what that's called.
Skybridge.
Skybridge. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that goes to like some department store.
Dillard's. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Little product placement there.
Please carry my book. I have name change.
There was a Dillard's and a Barnes and Noble, and you can tell that the last second one was Amazon.
And eventually, at some point, Philip and April start going on runs together.
Yes.
Yep. And he's seen that she and Penny get along, and that's really important. Maybe I can have a life with her. And then they go on a run, little Dillard's run. They're heading off. Go get Tara some more smokes. By the way, and this is interesting because, bits and pieces, and Gene's mentioned this, I think way back on our Nurture and Support when you recommended this book. The television show, kind of, sort of pulled elements from this. So we got the name Tara, but the Tara in the TV series is not, I don't think, a parallel at all.
Right.
But there's no April parallel. But we get, they go on their next run, and they get on the Sky Bridge, and there's a storm.
And he loses his mind.
Yeah.
And completely and totally, utterly takes advantage of her. And he doesn't even understand that he's really even doing it until it's over.
This is actually the part I was going to talk about, because I did this book through audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, this part comes up while I'm driving home from work.
Ugh.
And you know that feeling where it's like your face kind of goes numb?
Yeah.
it was just like listening to that being described. I was just like, oh my, like even though this is a fictional character, it's just like,
Yeah.
oh god, this is horrid.
Right.
Yeah,
Ugh.
yeah, and it's yeah, it because there's a moment where there's I think everybody's on the same page, but then people stop being on the same page very early in the process.
Yeah, they start getting it on, and then she's like, you know what, you have to stop, and he just doesn't.
Too soon.
Yeah.
You really need to stop, and at this point, he is not picking up on that.
No, he's just like he's just a locomotive. He's just totally running over her, and this is the second instance of that particular type of violence that I don't care for. In this series, there was the stuff that happened with Michonne, and then now this, and touching on it once. Okay, let's not continue to revisit this. If this, like, I don't like if there's a third.
You're
I'm
not
totally
gonna,
done.
you're not gonna like part of Follow the Governor.
Okay, then I'll skip that because I really I don't appreciate that being used regularly as anything. And you know what? If you want to at some point in time, and not that I'm advocating anything, but it seems like
I am so interested to see where you're going. with this.
I really don't. I don't even want because I don't want to have people like pelt things at me. But I really feel like perhaps there should be something of equality on the guy's side. If you're going to keep hitting this as a particular point that you feel like you have to have rape in things constantly, then you need to turn that table and make it fair game on everybody. I don't care for constant violence against women in that frame. It bothers me a lot. And I'm not saying that I'm advocating any of it. I'm just saying if this is a tool that you feel you need to use, then you should probably be a little more liberal with whom you apply it to.
And so
If
now
that makes
I'm
sense
choosing.
without making me sound completely psycho, because I
No,
don't
I
like
get-
I don't agree with it, but
I'm trying to choose my words wisely here.
it's
Because
hard.
I don't.
It's
because
not easy.
Well,
yeah, and you want to be, it's not obviously the there's not like joke material here a lot of stuff,
Right.
but there was. I'm with you, and I think that that's fair. This isn't like a justification or anything, but it does appear that he's willing to check into this in a lot of different ways, because Carl actually got very close to that same situation with the Hunters, with when they in the TV series and definitely in the comic, it started to go. One of the guys in the Hunters was like, this Rick bit people in both the TV show and the comic
Right.
right around. But again, not equivalency, whatever. But I get what you're saying, and but you're saying, okay, so there's maybe a little more to Follow the Governor we may need.
Maybe
There-
I'll just put that off for a while.
Well, I will say this: there is, admittedly, they go into an annoying amount of detail, unfortunately, with the McConaughey thing, or is it Michonne?
Michonne.
Michonne. But, and unless I'm mistaken, you know how she goes back for the governor in the comics, but you don't see what happens?
You see a lot, but there's probably more.
Oh, there is so much more. And they describe it. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, so there is some sort of like equivalency there. It's messed up as hell
Right.
on all parts, but it's there.
So they leave the bridge. It's
Yes.
kind of weird.
Thank you.
We're
Sorry.
gonna move off the bridge.
Thank you. We're good.
And she kind of doesn't. I mean, she's not.
She's checked out.
She's checked out, and they just go and they get back, and everybody goes to sleep. And then when they wake up in the morning, Philip's like, "Hey, my boots are gone, and my stuff is gone," and makes his way into the main living area, where he's greeted by Tara, who's now packing heat.
Yeah.
And sending them on their way.
Mm-hmm. And Philip knows exactly why, but he won't explain that to anybody. So they're all like, "Why are we leaving? Why do we have to go? I like it here. Can we stay? Why are we doing this?" And he's just like, "Shut up, let's go."
No, we need to go. She's probably right.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. So they get shoved out the door with Penny, which I sort of felt sorry for. Not that I would expect him to leave his daughter, but it just seemed like a more stable situation for her. And it's sort of, he just messed that whole thing up.
Oh yeah, big time.
So
because now they're reset to, they had stocked up. They were in pretty good shape. They had some food, they had some weapons, and the reset button's been hit now, and they've got nothing.
Right.
And they're shoved back out there. So eventually, I think they start with, he's got a jack or a club or a piece of metal. So, but basically they got like one stick to hit things with.
Or they go to one of the safe spots that Nick marked.
Yeah.
The bus or something.
Yeah.
They have a toy store.
Yeah.
Yeah, Penny got a toy there. And somewhere in this process is particularly the Philip craziness, they came up with a safe word that anytime, so Brian and Penny have bonded, and anytime he wants her to kind of look away and avoid, he wanted to come up with a code word to say to her so she would know to do it. And she came up with it, thought long and hard about it, and came up with away.
Right.
And there's a couple times now and in earlier things where the away card had to be played. Kind of
Right.
Yep.
And they find transportation at a motorcycle shop.
Motorcycles, I believe.
Yep.
Hi.
Some Harleys.
Yes.
And Harley gear.
And Brian doesn't know how to ride one, so he has to be Nick's. Yeah.
Should have got him on like a Vespa or something like that.
Right. Wing. Yeah.
And
they do find a limited amount of supplies and things there. And
a few things.
yeah, and they have a hard time. I think there's not a whole lot of like protection as far as the bikes go, so it's a little bit difficult. And I think Brian ends up just like swinging a 2x4 at zombies.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're still a little low on the weapon situation. And they make their way down to the Farmhouse of Doom, which is not the official name of the farmhouse. It wasn't like they pulled up and it said the Farmhouse of Doom.
The villa.
Yeah, the villa of
That's,
Doom.
yeah.
But it's like in an orchard. It's a biggish house. It appears to. I don't think it's heavily occupied. I don't know. They may have had a zombie or two, but not much going on there. But you've got orchard, you got fruit.
And Brian thought they were being followed, and Philip
That's
told me he was
right.
paranoid.
Yep. He kept thinking, I think I saw something.
Right.
But they get there, and so here they actually get to supply up a little bit. They've got there's actually some canned goods and stuff in the house. They can get back into beds. The fruit, the trees around there, they can get some things from there and things from the house, and so they've got some food going now. They've got shelter, and they find an antique weapon that is not fireable, I believe.
Right.
And not a whole lot else. And Brian still keeps thinking something's going on. I think I saw lights and all that. And shut up.
And Nick delves further into his Bible.
Yep.
Yes.
Bible time. Everybody's still saying, so why did we have to leave again?
Shut up! Stop asking questions.
Which Philip does open up to Brian, at least.
A little bit, yeah.
Kind of explains where he made a mistake. And then some visitors stop by.
Yeah.
Handful of them. Yep.
Armed.
A couple of junkies.
Yep.
A couple of junkies that are a couple, actually, and there's two of them, so it is.
They're junk eyes. Eyes. When you have multiple junk eyes. There's some junk eyes and a biker guy and they basically are gonna.
There's one other one too. I think there's 4 of them total.
Just and they're gonna take him out. That's they say, well, we're gonna.
It's a great spot you've got, and we want it, and we don't really care if you live or die, so we're just gonna kill you anyway. Sort of scenario. And Philip's able to sort of negotiate their way out into the front lawn. They don't get a whole lot further than that.
Yeah, then all hell breaks loose. He did manage to say, how about just let us leave? And they kind of said yes, but everybody knew they
didn't mean it.
Not.
Yeah.
And then gunfire, gunplay, tables get turned a little bit, and some weapons get secured over on Philip and Brian's side. A couple of the
Brian's
bad
still
guys,
hiding in the weeds.
pretty much he's got Penny. He's trying to keep her kind of taking care of her.
Or not.
Or not.
Or not, really.
because I'm not saying she had it coming, but
that's a big butt there, Kelly. There's a big butt coming.
That'd be a little harsh. However, just when things kind of looked okay,
right?
Like the tide has been turned, or we're okay. Penny thinks she sees her father and goes charging to greet him.
Right.
However, it's not her father; it's one of the bad guys.
Right.
And Brian's desperately tried to stop her, but he's sickly and weak and worthless and couldn't. And then he's trying to run and catch her.
Oh, no, it's not that. They were hiding behind the wagon. It's like she yelled it, and the guy shot into the wagon, and that's how she got hit.
Yeah, and she was not winged. As described in the book, there's a pretty big chunk of her taken out, which is not consistent with the TV show. Best I could tell. I mean, I don't know how much Penny was there in the TV show, but
I think the way they describe it makes it sound worse than it is. I mean, they described it as like the buckshot going into her, but I don't think it like exploded chunks off of her.
But I think that particular description is very consistent with how he portrays gunshot wounds throughout the comic, because there's always, like, if you look at what happened with Carl, there's a massive chunk of Carl that got blown away when he was shot, and in the actual graphic, it's like a hole half the size of his head, but it's obviously not. So there's a certain amount of exaggeration that he tends to lean towards when he's doing gunshot wounds.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Bullet envy, I don't know. But so she gets shot fatally, but now they have regained control, and Sonny and Cher is what they've taken to calling the junkies. Were not killed in the altercation. However, Philip retained them. He took them into a barn and kept them on site. He's quite upset. He beat the crap out of Brian for not doing his job.
Right, yeah. He sort of, when he finds out that Penny's been shot, he sort of loses his mind a bit. He hauls off on Brian and turns him into a bag of bones, and then takes Sonny and Cher, the junkies, into the barn and ties them up, and starts to torture them.
Yep.
And Nick retreats further into his Bible and really becomes more and more uncomfortable with being around Philip.
Yeah, and when Brian's finally able to kind of get around a little bit, and they start picking up, he's not obviously comfortable either.
Right.
And we also, during this time, learned that not only has Philip retained Sonny and Cher in a barn where he's doing horrible things to them, he really couldn't let go of Penny, and he's got her kind of tethered to a tree.
In the orchard,
In the orchard, and he goes out and reads to her. And
feeds her bits of Sonny and Cher.
I believe so.
I don't think that's until later. I don't think that's till Woodbury.
I think so I'm not 100% sure how intact Sonny and Cher were.
Well, yeah, okay, that's true.
It didn't go into depth, but yeah, he makes sure his daughter's fed through the remainder of this book.
Yeah.
And so eventually they realize Nick and Brian kind of eventually say, I don't know what's going on here. They come in and they see the situation with Sonny and Cher, and Sonny and Cher basically are
Begging for death.
Begging for death. They're saying, kill us.
Right.
Of course, you can't really understand them
can't
because they don't
actually
have tongues anymore.
Exactly.
Problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're tortured and beaten enough, and things removed enough to the point where they can't actually speak properly any longer. So yeah. Then Nick decides it's time to do something about sort of what happens, and he actually wants to make a plan to go and get rid of Penny. It doesn't really work.
No. Because it's not called The Walking Nick.
It's not called Rise of the Nick.
Yeah, it's not Rise of the Nick.
And Philip's a scary, scary man.
Yes, he is.
Yep.
Yeah.
But they eventually. I'm trying to recall why they leave the Farmhouse of Doom. I think probably at some point it's just kind of like the mojo.
Go, didn't he?
Yeah, just to say we got to get out of here.
I think it's
Nick was not going to go. Nick was going to stay there and read his Bible and eat fruit.
Yeah.
And call it a day. And he only it was only when they were driving away that he decided it was time to go with them. And he was running after them with his backpack.
Yeah. With Penny chained in the back of the truck.
Mm-hmm.
She's traveling along with him. And so we've done Wilshire Estates, we've been through Atlanta, we've done the Villa of Doom, and now we finally finish with Woodbury, because they do come across Woodbury where there are some guys working, trying to build the fences of Woodbury to begin with. There's kind of apparently there's a National Guard guy that's kind of unpleasant.
Psycho.
In charge. Yeah, he's kind of
power hungry and nuts a little bit.
And a little bit, and he's got a couple stoner idiots that are like his lieutenants, my best men, my agents.
Martinez.
Yeah,
Martinez. Yeah.
Martinez is in there, but his core thing is Beavis and Butthead. They're his main two. But Martinez is in the mix too, and they're charging admission to watch. There's a track at Woodbury, kind of a dirt track, and so they charge people admission for that. And there's.
I think one of the things that was really sort of interesting was Brian's walking around, and he actually meets Stevens.
Yep.
And Stevens kind of says, hey, you got cracked ribs, and whoever beat the snot of you did a really good job, man. So he kind of tries to walk around and get the lay of the land. And one of the things that gets said to him, and I can't remember the exact terminology, but sort of there are no rules here. This is the Wild West, son. This is this is chaos. And he's right. It's absolute chaos, and it's the military guys that sort of take advantage of that and try and extort money out of people for various reasons, as though money really means anything anymore when the stores are all looted and there's not the brightest guy. If you're gonna extort something from, make it useful, sort of paper is no longer something to covet when you're in the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
And they're not nice to some of the female residents either. They're basically they're out of control and bad. Yeah. And meanwhile, eventually in kind of a wacky Three's Company kind of way, you've got Brian, Nick, and Philip in an apartment, and Philip decides, it's time Penny moves in, and locks her in the washing room area where the washer and dryer at,
and it smells enough that Brian is like ready to hurl every time he's in the apartment.
which he does anyway. You know, it's his thing.
Like you do.
Yeah, he does what I do. I'm a sick guy. That's what I do.
That's what I do.
And they're somehow Penny's getting fed. It was kind of like the first time that Brian stumbled across Philip feeding or something. It was something more along the lines like, found it on the road. You know, there was his hand.
Yeah. There's parts laying around. I don't know.
Someone forgot it.
Yeah.
But,
and so is it Nick or Brian that I think it's Nick that follows him.
Yes.
To see what's going on, and he figures out that actually he's attacking people and hacking bits off to bring back to his daughter.
Yes, indeed, and he's in process on the next one when that's uncovered, and that's when Philip decides it's time for this to stop. Brian kind of gets in the mix.
Nick decides it's time for this to stop. I think Philip would have been fine keeping going with that.
No, Philip had a plan. It was good. It was working out. So there's a confrontation.
Is Nick reading scriptures to him at that point?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Like he was muttering scriptures the whole way, I believe.
That's true. It's just a lot more at the end.
Yep. Which, probably worked, probably was handy. I think probably for the
I don't know.
best.
I think he was really the only one paying attention to any of that. I don't think Philip, biblical or not, I don't think there was an argument that would have made an impression upon Philip. I think he just, was going to do whatever he wanted to do regardless of anything or anybody else. He doesn't ever seem like an ask for permission kind of guy. No. And he doesn't seem like this whole ask for forgiveness, not permission. He doesn't seem like either of those are tools up his sleeve. He just does whatever he wants and screw everybody else. So, anyway, so there's a big kerfuffle.
Yes.
To put it lightly.
And who kills who?
Nick kills Philip and the girl accidentally.
Yep.
And then
the girl not being Penny, the girl being the one that Philip was trying to chop up to feed to Penny, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And then Brian kills Nick.
Yes.
Yeah.
In a red rage of he must have borrowed from Philip.
Yeah.
So he's borrowing, and as we learn, he's borrowing a lot from Philip moving forward at this point in time.
Yep.
It's Philip's Mr. Tie you up and abuse you in a room, and Philip's Mr. Feed my Penny body parts, and
keep heads in tanks.
And he's pretty tough. So at this point, we got Nick down, Philip's gone, and Brian comes back to the apartment with Penny and just sits in front. There's some dirty aquariums in the apartment, and he just sits in a chair and stares at them for a day or two.
They say fish are soothing.
Yeah.
And it mentions that, they go into details I did not need to say, if you are indeed going to stare at aquariums for 2 days in a row, there's going to be other issues. and if you choose to not leave the chair, there's going to be problems. And so, but it's like, yeah, that's what he did. He just kept staring at the aquariums and blah.
Well, didn't they say didn't they write he basically was in a, I think they wrote it as a coma, but he was basically in shock.
Yeah. And then the military guys decide to call a meeting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Time to show you guys who's in charge. It's me with the gun and the crew cut. And he's up there barking and stuff, and one kind of older mechanic guy is like, I'm not having this. I'm leaving, and he's like,
Oh yeah,
"You
Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit.
are." Who seemed like a cool guy.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool character. Developed for about 4 pages, then stopped.
Yeah.
So he kills Detroit, and you can still see people. They're not happy about this, but they also
They're still afraid.
right. And so Crew Cut Boy sends out Beavis and Butthead to say, "You guys go out there and gather up the rest of these people. I got to square them away." And this is where they talk about really up to this point, because even when Brian killed Nick, it still wasn't. It's almost more by accident. He's still like, can this guy stand up? Can this guy be tough and aggressive? And he's in the back of the room. Detroit was shot basically right beside him, and the other guy keeps barking along, and then Brian starts to walk up the middle of the aisle to have a chat with Mr. Military, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he shoots him.
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
That's what I'm doing. I'm shooting you. That's what I'm doing.
Well, I think it was sort of interesting too, because he gives like a description of himself. He pulls on a shirt to go, like, I don't know, like some metal band T-shirt, and he looks at himself in the mirror and he says, like, he looks kind of weaselly and he's thin. He's got sort of long greasy hair, and he's like, like, all right, and he leaves. And that's like the basic description that we get of the governor, which fits very well for the comic. Not at all for the TV show.
No.
Oh yeah.
Stark, crazy contrast for the TV show. It's they and after he shoots Military Man, they ask him what his name is, and he says Philip. So it's almost like they cast Philip in the place of Philip, and not Brian, who is pretending to be Philip, as the governor.
Right.
And this is where the TV show totally jacked with us. Because Governor Philip, who probably didn't spend a lot of time in closets with Penny,
No.
I don't think. Because they actually had pictures of him with his wife and Penny, I think. But he took the moniker of Brian for a while because he kept passing the Brian. I can't remember what the last name was. It wasn't Blake in the TV show, but there was a Brian something he kept passing by, and so when he met Tara and crew in their apartment, there's also no beef jerky truck in the book. I was very disappointed. Magic beef jerky truck.
From the show, yeah.
But so they flipped it on us, and so Philip went by Brian for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But here Brian goes by Philip and becomes the governor. So yeah, I couldn't see David Morrissey. He's just trying to image him as the Brian in this book, and it's hard. It would be hard.
No, he's described as sort of scrawny and sickly, and there's really nothing about Morrissey, even after his eye's gone, that is either skinny, scrawny, weaselly, greasy. None of those descriptors that they use in the book for Brian fit Morrissey at all.
Yeah, this is definitely made for the comic universe, for sure.
Yeah.
But oddly enough, David Morrissey did have a failed record store, which is kind of a nice parallel. Look it up on Wikipedia.
I think there's a lot of really fun stuff that's in the comics, and the writers will veer away from it and then like pluck little fun pieces out of it and add them in, and it's interesting to see some of those. And they keep saying that they're going to get closer to the comic, but they said that, I want to say it was like before this season, and I haven't seen a whole lot really going towards that. Like, okay, there were cannibals, but there was no terminus, there was no hospital, like there's no Beth, and so it's sort of interesting. But they have plucked little pieces out of it, like when he clipped Martinez with the RV. Same thing as when he ran over the cop with his own cop car.
Strictly speaking, he clipped Martinez on top of the RV with the golf club.
In the show, yes.
In the show.
But in the comic, he hit him with the RV.
Yeah, Rick did. Yeah.
Ran him over. So it's they pull out little pieces like that, and it's fun. And if they do get back to some of the things that are in the comic, I think that's great. But I also like the fact that they sort of play both worlds to some degree.
I don't know about you all, but I loved how they plucked, like 5 pages from the second trade and made the entire second season from it. On the farm.
Yes. Yeah. The farm. I remember that too when I was watching. I'm like, the farm doesn't last that long in the comic.
No, it doesn't.
Like we're ready to go. Can we pack our bags and just hit the road, please?
Where's the prison?
Exactly. Because they did. They really took a very, and because they stretched it out so far too, it made it look like Michonne came in much later. Really, she's there before issue 20, so she's still a kind of an early addition looking at the whole span. But due to the way that they chop things up, she sort of joins the cast late, and it's just sort of interesting how they change those things.
Yeah, I do think, and they're taking their sweet time about it, but I do think that they are working to better align. Partially through subtraction. It's like, Tyrese didn't, in the comic, Tyrese didn't make it out of the prison, and he was still hanging around, so that problem's been resolved, and so that piece is there, but I don't, and then Morgan is reintroduced in the storyline some too, so we'll see. But there's some big problems because there's no, cool comic Andrea. Yeah.
Does not exist.
No.
It didn't exist in the TV world.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And is gone. So it'll be interesting to see.
I love Andrea in the comic.
I do too.
In the comic.
And I hate Carol in the comic, and I love Carol in the show. So, yeah. All right. I think that about covers it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you guys want to say about the book?
I liked it. I thought it was good. It was good words. It's good words.
I liked it too. It's like we were saying earlier. Even though it has that it very much reads like a comic book script.
Right.
Again, knowing what happens in The Fall of the Governor, going through this one was definitely a very interesting experience. So I'm interested to hear what you all will have to say about Fall of the Governor when we get to that.
Excellent. That might take me a little bit to get to.
Understandable.
But yes, we'll cover that one at some point. Yeah, it's on my list, but that might take me. You know what? But I think if I know it's coming, I can glaze over that part. I don't really need to read the descriptions of it. So. Yeah. And I think that was one of the things that I really struggled with in the comic with Michonne is because in the comic, and we've talked about this a little bit before, Kelly. It's there in front of you, and it's there in front of you until you turn the page. It's not like on television where it's an instant in front of you and it's gone. It's off screen when they want it to be off screen. And so even though you're reading over here, it's still sitting there, this little square of ugliness. It makes it really hard to kind of sort of glaze over some of those things. And I think if it's in the book and I know it's coming, I can probably just kind of skip that a little bit. I think it's enough to know what happened. I don't think I need to know all the details.
Yep.
So, okay. So we can totally do that, yeah. Just tell me where it's at later, okay?
Okay.
Give her page numbers.
Well, I did audiobook, so I can tell you the chapters.
Okay, that works. That's better. Okay, that's fine. Great.
Chapters? There's chapters of this? That is a lot of detail.
Big books. Have chapters.
Books are hard.
It's not a pop-up.
Oh, it's not?
Pop-up zombie.
That would be awesome, wouldn't it?
It would be for the
Have
zombie actors.
Here's the closet with Brian and oh, there they are. They're in the closet. Oh, he sneezes. That'd be awesome. The
pop-up penny.
You'd have like the little track with the cars you could zoom around. Vroom, vroom. Here's the little military guys. Give me money. Give me money. That'd be awesome. Yeah. Got to make that. I would read that and play with it. All
Idea
right.
for the next Telltale Games game.
Excellent.
All right.
Good times.
Yeah.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night.